It's time for a deep dive on University of Portland basketball. The inside story on the Pilots. This is Portland Pilots basketball with Coach Eric Reveneau. Tonight's show is brought to you on 910 ESPN Portland by employee-owned Bi-Mart, by your local Les Schwab Tire Center, the Oregon College Savings Plan, by Buffalo Wild Wings, U.S. Bank, by Safeway, and by PlaySmart Health Screenings from Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. Now here's your host, Jason Bro.
It's upon us, and Happy New Year, as mentioned. Portland looking back on last weekend and looking ahead to what is hopefully going to be a very good 2016. A lot of basketball left to be played. We'll be joined by Coach Reveneau shortly here in studio at the Intercom Portland studios. Portland coming off of a couple heartbreakers, to be quite honest. A couple games that I think the Pilots going into felt they could have won. And as the games played on, definitely a couple games that could have ended up in the W category. Instead, Portland takes a couple losses. We've talked about it all season long, how winning on the road is so difficult when you go into conference play. Getting those road wins seems to become even more difficult. And Portland coming up just short in both games. Some record-setting performances over the last week as well from Alec Wintering. Some unbelievable scoring as well. So Wintering gets a couple back-to-back 30-point games. That's the first time in University of Portland history at the Division I level. And the 62 points scored in the first half at San Francisco was also a school record, matched the school record, but the highest against a Division I opponent. Coach Reveneau joins us now. Coach, glad you made it here safely. It's a little icy out there, and hope everyone's being safe. How you doing?
Doing well. It was, it is a little icy out there, but good to be here.
So, Coach, looking back at last week, and we'll start with the San Francisco game, and let's start with the positives. I mean, I think offensively that's about as good of a first half as you can hope for. It was sparked by your bench. You got a couple guys, and Jazz Johnson and DeMarcus Tyson came off the bench. I think when they came in, the Pilots were 0 for 4 on three-pointers, and they left, and 7 in a row were hit.
Yeah, no, we've had some good contribution off the bench. You know, the first 4 games of league. You know, remember the LMU game with Alec when he had some foul trouble, and we're obviously better with him on the floor, as he showed again this weekend. But DeMarcus and Jazz both in particular have been playing well. So that first half was an offensive, something to behold. Really, defensively it was a little bit something to behold too in the bad way. It was a tough game. I mean, it was interesting because even from a coach's perspective, the 62 points in a half could be distracting, to really look at. What concerned me at half going in, and I told the guys that we were making threes and they were getting layups a little bit too much, and getting to the line. And we were getting to the line. I thought the officiating this weekend was tight, but it was consistent, and they do a nice job, and we were taking advantage of it. Alec definitely was. We needed someone else to do that. And then the second half, when we stopped knocking down the threes, even against the 2-3 zone they put out there, we needed to get to the line and get some of those layups, the high percentage stuff.
Listen to the Portland Pilots show with Coach Reveneau here on 910 ESPN Portland. If we got a phone line open, give us a call at 503-542-0910 or go on Twitter. Hit us up using hashtag AskCoachRev. And Coach, 62 in the first half, but as you mentioned, the threes kind of dried up, and there was actually still, you got about 5 good looks, I think, from about the 4.5 minute down to like the 2 minute mark, where San Francisco came all the way back. They took the lead. It looked like it was going to get away, and I think Jazz had a couple, Bryce had a couple, Alec maybe had 1 or 2, and each one would have tied it, but it just didn't fall. And is that kind of, Charles Barkley always says, jump shooting teams kind of live and die by it. Is that something? You mentioned the zone. It kind of gave you some troubles, but you got some good looks, though, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I felt like we did. We had prepared a little bit, prepared for it. And, the thing that was, from a coach's perspective, you look at it and you say, gosh, there were good looks. Boy, knock those down, it's a whole different ball game. Keep the pressure on them. We got stuck there at 95. We got stuck it a couple times, and then they just were able to get comfortable. When we did get some stops, maybe 1 or 2 in a row, we still didn't score, and so that let them feel comfortable, and we got the good looks. that zone had a really open high post. We had Gabe in there a little bit. We had Jarrell. We'd also worked on Bryce going in there. And some of the guys looked like they hadn't had enough reps there. They didn't look quite as comfortable, Jason Todd and Bryce. And, so maybe we were diversifying it too much. And what I was going to say and answer your question about live and die with the jump shot is, we've got to become a little more diversified offensively to manage, weather those storms. And I think we are. I think we're better than we have been. And I've talked about it too. I think we're better defensively than we have been. This weekend on the road, we weren't good enough to defensively to weather some storms. And defense and different ways of scoring, whether it's getting to the line. Alec showed that. Jarrell has done it in the past. We need him to do that. Bryce has done it. Bryce did a great job and Santa Clara did a good job adjusting. Bryce was doing a good job of penetrating, and they were pressuring him, and then he'd penetrate, and then they'd stay solid. He wouldn't get a foul, and he'd make a good play and a good decision from there. So I think we're getting better at those facets, but I think as league is showing to everybody that you've got to be to get a road win is going to be hard fought, and you've got to be sharp. And I think in the end of the day, we're going to make shots at times. We got to be able to defend a little better.
You mentioned the officiating and being consistent and being called both ways, and I thought that was the case, but I also thought Portland did a nice job. You mentioned Alec getting to the line 15 times. Bryce was being more aggressive. It seemed just anecdotally, and I don't know if the stats or data to back it up, but it seemed like there was a little lull in terms of how tight they were calling the hand checks and the driving call. And then as we got into conference play, it seemed like there's been quick whistles both ways, but is that your perception as well?
Yeah, and I think if I paid attention more, I could even answer the question better. I get an email with notifications, and they talked to us about it, and they were concerned that it was slipping. I get the emails, and I could go in, and I get the emails the referees get, and I knew it was going to be tighter. I don't follow it closely enough. And we have a good team, and I like to think we coach it the right way so that we adjust well to it. I think that was evident in the Santa Clara game where we were trying to get those fouls and Santa Clara adjusted. We weren't giving them up as much. But yeah, no, there was a lull. Like they let it go a little bit. And just for the more, I imagine there's the more vigorous, rigorous, whatever the word might be, strenuous, whatever the word is for a fan that listens to the show and really follows it closely. On games when there's Pac-12 games at the same time, you're going to get a different kind of official. And it's just, if you're watching closely, and on a Saturday when there's 180 games across the country or whatever it is, 150 something, and it's there's a lot of games and the West Coast officials. You get a different kind of official, and the league has done a good job of trying to ensure that. This last weekend we had some quality crews because we were offset with the Pac-12, and our league is doing a good job, without going into too much detail now, of working with officials and the officials consortium. So we're sharing officials more and doing a better job of that, and so we're getting some good crews. And I don't agree with every call as is obvious at times, but it's a little more. You can sleep better at night when you get a veteran that's done some NCAA tournaments managing your game.
We'll take our first break. We got Coach Reveno in studio for the Portland Pilots Coaches Show. Give us a call. We got a phone line open, 503-542-0910, or on Twitter using hashtag AskCoachReveno. You can also go to portlandpilots.com/AskCoachRev to submit a question. We'll be back after this short break.
You're listening to Portland Pilots Basketball with Coach Eric Reveno on 910 ESPN Portland. Here's your host, Jason Bro.
Thanks for joining us, talking Portland Pilots basketball. And Coach, that was a fun game to watch on Thursday. Obviously, the result wasn't pleasing if you're a Portland Pilots fan, but that's one of those games where, maybe a first-time person that tunes in goes, holy cow, the pace of this game, the teams are skilled, they're shooting it, they're knocking down shots. The ball, make or miss, the ball's going, it's going up and down the court. That's got to be good for college basketball, and just from the perception of the WCC, I'd imagine.
Right. No, one of the things if people follow me on Twitter, I tweeted about our offensive efficiency in the conference leading the country right now. I think it's a good league that way. And I was curious, and I didn't go down this rabbit hole too far in terms of, are we calling more fouls in our league? it doesn't look like it, but they might be calling it tighter, and then the players are adjusting and more offensive, fluid offense. Definitely, the rule change and our style of play change has kind of come together at the right time. And part of the reason it was a good time for us to really switch some of the offensive things we were doing was because the way the rules were it's hard to guard a explosive dribbler coming at you. We were doing a defensive drill today, and we're emphasizing that stuff. And Rashad is driving on Bryce, and he's tough to keep in front and not foul, and how you help and what you do. And so it's a good league. It's just a tough league where teams are really talented and can really make things happen.
I'll go to the phone lines. We've got Pedro V from down in Southern California. I know Pedro was at the games in the Bay Area. Pedro, what do you got?
Hey, Jason, Coach Rev, good evening. Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year.
All right, thanks. It was great seeing both of you up there. And, Coach, were you actually praising officials right now? Honestly?
No, it's a New Year's resolution. I'm good for a week, like all of our resolutions. I'm good for a week on it at least.
Wait till he gets out of Spokane. We'll see if
yeah. Talk to me on Sunday.
Well, good for you. That's a great thing to hear. I can't say enough about the team and the effort we saw at USF and Santa Clara. That was just some exciting ball. Win or lose or win. It was some great ball to see, and they played in front of some huge crowds that were making a lot of noise, and it was just such a great learning experience. And, Saturday I thought Gabe Taylor just played. That's the best I've seen him play in 2 years. He just did so many different things. And Ray Beretta, he was just rebounding and running the court, staying out of foul trouble. And, you're really starting to get a nice balance. It was great to watch both games.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic on the way things are going too. To be honest, when you look at the road trip as a whole, I was more frustrated. I sort of had an accumulation of frustration after Saturday's game because I felt like Jason was pointing out that Thursday was a good basketball game. We were up 15 or whatever it was, and we let that one slip away, but we could still salvage the road trip with a split, and then to go away 0-2. When you're playing pretty good basketball, all in all, you're playing well. Guys are playing hard. I think we're playing hard. You can argue that, I guess, because of some of the defensive stuff I've talked about. But I'm after watching it closely, trust me, I snowed in yesterday and just watched film all day. I did go out with my son for a little bit and mess around in the snow, but for the most part, just hung tight and watched film. And I think our guys are playing hard, and we just got to clean up some little things. And guys are coming on, is what I was going to say in terms of the other reason for optimism. Last 5 games, Jazz Johnson has 10 assists and 2 turnovers. Is playing much better in that. With his role and still scoring and still being explosive, comes in against Santa Clara and knocks down a 3.
Every game he's just getting better. As a young player, they're just going to keep getting better. There were 2 great exciting games, and I went to the Lakers game down here last night and got up on the screen for tweeting them and all that. But the effort I saw with the pilots and your guys, it was just 200%.
Knowing you, I thought you'd be up there for the dance cam. Or you and the missus for the kiss cam, maybe.
No, the Laker girls kicked me out of the corner where they were dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Beat it.
Yeah, you get yourself in trouble. You might get yourself arrested. You're not careful with that. At least in trouble with the wife, for sure.
Oh, God, all the above. Arrest and divorce. No, we can't do that. But honestly, the Lakers' effort was great last night. Different level of play, but I just saw the Pilots playing just so much harder than these pros that don't turn it on until the fourth quarter. So, you go get Gonzaga, and we'll be up there in February rooting for you. And I know you're going to get that balance you're looking for. I'm seeing a lot of young players really doing some good things for you on the court.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, Coach. Jason, good night.
Good night, Pedro. Thanks for calling in. That gives us a phone line open, 503-542-0910. Send us a question. Got one on Twitter about late game, Coach. 2-6 when margin within 5 points either way from the 5-minute mark down. Is there any specific reason why, anything that you can point to as you kind of look back at these games?
No. Not anything specific. Each if you specific, you'd have to look at each game and come up, and everything's been a little bit different. Like Weber State, we did, I don't know if we ever had a chance to talk about it, but we fouled up 3. You had to use a timeout because Jason Todd was out as our press breaker. Had to use a timeout to inbound it because Bryce, Gabe was open deep as the play showed, and and Bryce was in the position. He hadn't practiced there much because Jason normally does it. We use our timeout. We're having trouble with the free throw rebounding, so we don't foul. Should have fouled. So that one, I'd say, yeah, specific thing. We should have fouled up 3, but I also was worried about rebounding and the fact we didn't have timeouts, and we were having trouble with the press breaker, some other things. So each game is different. That one still sticks in my craw, and then otherwise, I would say you got some young guys, got guys in new roles. I'm disappointed by that. I look at those things critically, and I think I'm ultimately responsible for those situations. And so we've worked and addressed some of those things, whether it was press breakers or out of bounds or defense or whatever it might have been, to close out games. I also think we need, and this is just in all honesty, speaking among friends here. And some guy in Iowa with nothing better to do, but we've got to have the confidence and the swagger that we're going to win. We've got to believe in ourselves. Gonzaga won 2 games this weekend because they don't think they're going to lose. It's
exactly.
Not Gonzaga, but they're used to winning, and we won. We had a good winning season last year. And we've got to, all the young guys, if you look at our young guys in our program right now, they all came from championship level programs. Jazz, Colin, just everyone just has had a good experience winning. And we've got to sort of bring that swagger, and that's my responsibility so it's an intangible is what I'm saying sometimes too, just making that play. Even at the end of the Santa Clara game, trying to do things that, to put yourself in position to win, refusing to lose. You like to have it for 40 minutes. You like to have it defensively for 40 minutes and what is it? I saw in the Oregon thing, win the play, and win every possession and not. But then at the end, you sort of have guys that are winners like Jazz. You see Jazz late clock on some things. He's kind of got it a little bit. Alex got it, and we just sort of need to have that confidence and swagger. And my job is, I like to say my job as a coach is to put him in those situations for that to happen. And we got to keep working on it.
Yeah, and I think you see that across all sports. We at the University of Portland, we cover so many sports, and you just see a team kind of gets that culture created where they expect to win. And you mentioned Gonzaga as a classic example, same road trip. They could have easily come out 0-2 in that road trip. They were nip and tuck with Santa Clara all the way down. Santa Clara misses a layup in the last 15 seconds that would have tied it. Gonzaga has to come back from 15 down, I think, in the second half, 10 with about 3 minutes to go. And it's just, they've kind of built that equity. And I think St. Mary's in some ways has kind of built that winning equity.
And what it's also internal, but it's also what your opponent's thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
The kid who misses a layup, is he thinking, I'm going to beat Gonzaga? Mm-hmm. And does he flinch at the last second? Whereas a kid, does Portland have that same fear in their mind? Are they like people think like, and so is it approached differently? We also talked about the best shot we're going to get from teams because Gonzaga's their free and easy game. Gonzaga's house money. They got to get, especially, on the, USF had to get in their mind, even though, and then they're on house money on Saturday against Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to do what they can against them and let it fly. So, but those are all sort of interesting things to think about. I think the main thing is, as a coach, when you're talking about trying to build confidence, late game, any point, put people in position to be successful. We need to score more around the basket. We need to get more to the free throw line. What do we run in to do that? Late game, early game. Put in some offensive wrinkles that worked really well. Got Bryce around the basket a little bit more. Got some play. Got Gabe that and one situation late on a transition play. Driving at the rim, taking advantage of it. Guys settling into their roles a little bit. We got to continue to fight that.
A lot more to talk about. We'll talk about Alec Wintering's record-breaking performance, Bryce Presley as well. Gabe Taylor, as Pedro V mentioned, had a great game, and of course a little game this week, just a one game. It's that team from up in Spokane, Gonzaga, coming up on Saturday. So we'll have more with Coach Reveno on the Portland Pilots Coaches Show right here on 910 ESPN Portland.
You're listening to Portland Pilots Basketball with Coach Eric Reveno on 910 ESPN Portland. Here again is Jason Breaux.
If you have any questions for Coach Rev, give us a call at 503-542-0910. And Coach Alec Wintering, we mentioned last week, the previous week earned WCC Player of the Week honors, had 34 points on 15 shot attempts against Pepperdine. Comes back, 8 days later, 31 points on 15 shot attempts at San Francisco, becomes the first Pilot ever with back-to-back 30-point games, and we talked about the officiating and taking advantage of that, and he's someone who is probably about as good in the conference as there is about recognizing when there's contact, getting himself to the free throw line, and using these rules to his advantage, isn't he?
No, he's really good. I mean, and we knew that, the spacing on the floor, where you try to get the other 8 guys to get him his drive opportunity, and what he's learning is sometimes all things said and done, there's going to be a big down there, and you've got to then make good decisions. And he actually sat practice out today, because we were trying to take advantage of the good week to heal up, and his knee was a little bit, tender, and just wanted, because he plays so rugged, and so he just to rest him up a little bit, and Bryce a little bit, and because he is key for us. He plays so hard. What I like about him right now, and is he's rebounded at a very high rate. He's rebounded at a very high rate. He's making defensive plays. I almost have to, we have to put him. He's a lot of times our best perimeter defender. We can't put him on their best player all the time, but he's one of our best defenders. And when you're looking for sort of a competitive grit or toughness or whatever, you kind of see it in his eyes. I mean, he doesn't. If he wasn't such a polite, nice kid, he might bite my head off when I take him out. And he's got that. He's also trying harder and communicating and being a really good leader. So, he's taking the responsibilities of making this his team. And like you say, like we've talked about it early in the year, he's the one that came up with the sort of the write your own, and he's just sort of, really comfortable being the player that he can be, and just working really hard at.
He had and the whole team had some uncharacteristic free throw struggles early in the year. But, over these last 2 games, Alec gets to the free throw line 25 times, makes 24 of them. That seems to be in the rear view. Bryce Presley is starting to get to the free throw line a little bit more, especially at Santa Clara. You mentioned his aggressiveness. He really took it to Santa Clara. Alec struggling from the field, just couldn't get it going. He got himself in good position. But Bryce really picked up the slack there, gets 7 free throw attempts. And you really need that out of them, don't you? You need to get the easy points, because they have to work hard a lot to get those.
Yeah, I think easy points are something that, this is a balance of offense. We, just the inside, outside, the off the dribble penetration, again, diversifying your offense so you're just not as predictable, because there's good teams in our league that are going to be well prepared. They're going to play guys the way that, they were going to go under ball screens on Alec, keep them in front of you, and then make him see if he can, make him shoot over you, don't foul him. And so then what's your plan B? And Alec can do different things, but, to have him have to do that every night, or for him or Bryce have to produce for us to win, is unrealistic. For them to play well, maybe get someone else involved, find DeMarcus, find Jason's, over the course of the season, been a great facilitator for us in terms of screening, passing, moving the ball, knocking down the open 3. Gabe and Jarrell at the 4 spot we've talked about. Need to get our 5s more involved, whether in transition, running the floor, offensive rebound putbacks, or taking advantage of someone else, overpaying a lot of attention to Alec or Bryce or whoever it might be. That's something that we got to keep working on.
We've talked a lot about the importance of the 4 position in terms of what you guys are doing offensively now and taking advantage of some matchups. And, Pedro V mentioned it earlier in the show, but I thought Gabe Taylor really looked aggressive offensively, made some good plays, had a career-high rebounds against Santa Clara. How do you evaluate how he did in that game and kind of where he can grow from there?
I think Gabe has done a really good job of settling in and understanding it. I almost felt like his position change was the most dramatic. And when we made the offensive change to when we did, we looked at our 4 men and Jarrell and Gabe. And maybe if you went small some more than we have with Jason, Todd, or, someone that or Max, we would, the offense would suit them. And Gabe was the biggest one that was the biggest jump for him. And it was almost about reassuring him that he has the skill set and the ability to be very effective playing this way. He just hasn't done it much. He's just he's used to being a little more limited, in what he can do and the decisions he has to make. What I find interesting, I don't want to jinx us for Saturday in terms of turnovers, is that the style of play has been very conducive to us not turning it over. We're still being aggressive. We're still taking it at teams. We're trying to run in transition. We're now the fastest paced team in the WCC, and we're not turning it over because they're skilled players. And there's a little bit of the flexibility of not having to go left sometimes to run a play can help a guy out if he's pressured. He can go where the least pressure is, and it's harder for the teams to sit on certain things when there's more freedom.
Yeah, just a combined 15 turnovers for the Pilots in those 2 games. We got Ed and Camas. Ed, what do you have for Coach?
Hey, Jason. Hey, Coach. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You too, Ed.
Hey, Coach. When you have a couple extra days, you talked a little bit about giving the players a break. But is there anything that you focus on, or do you give them any time off? And then how about the coaching staff? What do you work on when you have a couple extra days and just one team this week to play?
So it's a great question. Sunday we got back. We were fortunate enough. It's very nice. 1 o'clock. The game from Thursday on New Year's to Saturday 1 o'clock was a quick turnaround. But we were fortunate enough to get back late Saturday night. So Sunday at home, which everyone kind of deserved, and it was kind of it was a rigorous December. Let's put it that way. And then so give them a day off, and then. We practiced today, and what we did today, we actually met in the morning. Kramer Knutson, by the way, when the school's closed, he's the one in charge of feeding all the guys and hustling for food and even on the road, he's working all the time. And so they had a team meal this morning. They're having a team meal right now. So they're spending a lot of time together. But we had film this morning. We watched. Basically, we're looking at plays around the basket, offensively and defensively. Us scoring more around the basket, defensively stopping teams from scoring around the baskets. The USF game had more and one plays for USF than I like to remember. And so looking at those and talking about those, why they happen, trying to be really specific and try to help them understand what they can do. And then practice this afternoon, came back at 4 o'clock, and we got after it for an hour and a half, an hour 45 maybe, and then they went and lifted a little bit with Coach Scott. And it was a good workout. We worked on those defensive, keeping guys in front of you, point of attack, defensive stuff, shoot the ball a little bit. And then tomorrow we'll take off. Maybe it's a good time to mention the team will be going to Bill Johnson's memorial service at Chapel on campus at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock with the reception after that is open to the public. A good chance to honor and remember Bill and 23 years of service to the university and so much more in this market.
So that one fell on Tuesday. I thought it was a good day to take off, and the team will be going to that and the reception afterwards and pay our respects and remember Bill fondly. And then Wednesday, start looking at Gonzaga. And what happens on a game like this is you just got to you don't want to flinch too early and start paying too much attention to Gonzaga too early and still take advantage of the opportunity to improve ourselves. What do we have to work on with one eye sort of at the future and what we got Saturday, and then Thursday and Friday we'll start honing in on Gonzaga.
Great. Thanks, Coach, and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Jason.
We'll take another break. Phone line is open, 503-542-0910. If you got a question or comment for Coach Rev, Pilots have Gonzaga coming up. We'll talk a little bit about that. Get a lay of the WCC landscape and check out the conference standings as well. You're listening to the Portland Pilots Coaches Show with Coach Eric Reveneau on 910 ESPN Portland.
You're listening to Portland Pilots Basketball with Coach Eric Reveneau on 910 ESPN Portland. Here's your host, Jason Breaux.
Welcome back. Give us a call, 503-542-0910. If you got a question for Coach Reveneau, we have a phone line open. And, Coach, we've mentioned a couple names today of some freshmen, and specifically Jazz Johnson. And, he came in and provided a big boost offensively. I think he's, from an offensive perspective, I don't know if the coaches are too surprised with what he's been able to do. You mentioned the assist-to-turnover ratio. He's kind of settling into kind of knowing his role as a point guard, doesn't seem to be forcing some stuff, but yet can still go out and drop 22 on a team like San Francisco. You got to be pleased with his development. Where do you see him at right now? Where does he need to improve the most? Is there any surprises that you've gotten from him?
Yeah, surprises. Great question. Surprise. Offensively, we had expectations. Offensively, ability to shoot the ball, score the ball. He's got a knack for getting the ball in the basket, which is a nice knack to have in the game. He's a willing, really hardworking defender. He's got a physical toughness to him. He's worked with Coach Scott on his conditioning and his physicality and being smart about it. There's some technical things defensively that he's really working on and gotten better on it. Even in the last few weeks, started last month, started December to now, he's improved defensively. The assist-to-turnover thing is just not always being in pedal to the metal, but still having that change of pace. And we even talked to Alec about that, about being basketball's a game of change of pace, not just one gear all the time. But Jazz is good, so I'm excited about his upside. And I think in terms of where he's at, he's somewhere on a steep learning curve, and right now I don't see it flattening out. And so I'm excited. Pedro asked a question, or so we were talking about, the team and where it's at and things to feel good about. Jazz is one of those young guys that's just really doing a nice job, and he's going to keep getting better. And so all of a sudden you think 6 weeks from now, where could he be? If he's working hard and he's focused and did well in the classroom and really conscientious there, busted his tail in his chemistry class. I told you that story. I still think of his chemistry lab book. I looked at his chemistry lab notebook at study hall. And did you know, Jason, that they added 2 elements today to the periodic table?
I did not know that, and you learn something new every day on the show. Apparently,
no, you learn something on Twitter. I learned, but they added 2 like for us old guys, start getting a closed mind. If they're adding elements to the periodic table, what else don't we know? That's all I'm saying. What else don't we know? 2 elements. If you can name those elements, call in if you can name those 2 elements. That they're
we'll give you a pilot prize.
How we missed them for all those years is what I want to know. Maybe Jazz knows.
Jazz, you've also been playing him with Alec a little bit, and I think some people might have been surprised by that. Is that something that's kind of just evolved as the season has gone on? Was that something you thought maybe you could work in when you recruited him? How has that come to be?
It's something that we thought we could work in when we recruited him, because we thought does Jazz not want to play until his junior year? Mm-hmm. I said, no, you can have the ability to play. You're competing with other perimeter players for playing time, and I always remind I don't quite put it in this terms when we're recruiting them, but once they get here, I definitely tell them it's kind of big boy stuff. You got to kind of earn your minutes, and I try to give them clear parameters on how they earn their minutes. And Jazz's ability to defend is really good. He's actually potentially one of our Rashad's good and has a good upside there, but on-ball defenders. And the problem with freshmen who are good on-ball defenders, a lot of times they're brutal off the ball, and that means they get caught by screens and actions and, hit a screen and get stuck on it. They're not used to it, and they're not used to simulating a scouting report and actually using it. And so Jazz is really coming along, and if we can have him guard the best perimeter guy and not Alec, and maybe you have to play Bryce at the 3, or maybe Jason's in there, or whatever we have going, it can give us some flexibility.
Another guy off the bench that provided an offensive boost, and he's been pretty consistent, in terms of knocking down open three-pointers. DeMarcus Tyson, 4 first-half three-pointers against San Francisco, comes back, knocks down 3 out of 5 from beyond the arc, has 12 points in both games. He's kind of been able to consistently give you that scoring punch off the bench. He's
been great, and this just so, I hope people don't try to understand how much I think too much, because I'm not sure it's productive, but when I look at his weekend and I look at the film and look at it, the thing that most people might find interesting that tells me maybe he should have played more was his defense and rebounding. Mm-hmm. He's sticking his nose in there more. He's rebounding the ball. And I don't know if the numbers bear that out, actually. Just from watching on film, I like what he's given us in those regards. A little bit of leadership at times. He's looking he's got his freshman year way in the rearview mirror. He looks like he's really improved into an upperclassman player, and the ability to shoot the ball is nice. And it's a dangerous weapon. People know that. Even making some decisions, I'm thinking of this clip, a video in Santa Clara game where he passed up a shot. And they were all up, and he just passed it up real quickly, didn't belabor it, just passed it up. Lo and behold, 2-3 passes later, it came back to him. He knocked down a 3. So. When we're doing that, sharing the ball, moving it quickly, we have some weapons, and he's definitely one of them.
We'll take another break. Give us a call at 503-542-0910 if you got a question for Coach Reveno in advance of the Gonzaga game on Saturday. We'll take a look at the WCC standings and preview that game up at the McCarthy Athletic Center. You're listening to the Portland Pilots Coaches Show on 910 ESPN Portland.
You're listening to Portland Pilots Basketball with Coach Eric Reveno on 910 ESPN Portland. Here again is Jason Bro.
Thanks for tuning in. Give us a call at 503-542-0910. We've got a couple more segments for you to get your questions in for Coach Reveno in advance of the Gonzaga game. And, Coach, we've talked a lot about all the great offensive production going on, and you've hit on kind of the areas that you'd like to see improvement on defensively. Walk us through on kind of some areas of what you saw when you went back and looked on tape, maybe collectively, that you guys are really focusing on this week on the defensive side of the ball.
Defensively, point of attack, rotations out of point of attack when we're getting beat, and just not allowing high percentage points at the basket. I mean, having some resolve, whether it's technical in terms of holding your ground, taking a charge, blocking a shot. USF I felt was disappointing in terms of the number of and ones. And the start of the Santa Clara game, we came out with a different mindset. And you remember the ball going down there, and they didn't even get a shot off. Phillip, Ray, Colin, Jarrell, Gabe, that should be happening more. And maybe not this weekend against Sabonis every play, but against certain guys that they should just sort of, I think, whether it's overcoaching, they're trying to be technically correct. They're not playing the game with their heart enough. They're playing it too much with their head, trying to be in the right spot. Just make a play. And so defensively having that, and then from there making the next play. So competing and making that next play. Again, I felt like we play hard. It's just sort of with that, we talk about being selfless, tough, and passionate as our core values, and I'm not sure we played with the sort of road toughness that we needed. And I don't like, because our guys aren't soft, so I don't like saying toughness and people think, oh, he's calling. I'm not. I'm just saying there's certain plays, basketball-wise, a little more discipline, a little more focus on the objective, and then I think that's what we need to focus on. Really, our teams are shooting too high a percentage around the basket for us. We need to sort of, we need to be getting some more and ones ourselves on the offensive end and not giving them up at the defensive end.
Let's take a look at the WCC standings. We're pretty much 4 games in for most teams, and at the top of the standings, again, St. Mary's 4-0, Gonzaga 4-0. Not a big surprise with Gonzaga. Maybe a little bit of a surprise with St. Mary's. They lose, I believe, 5 out of their top 6 players, but 13-1. They haven't left the Bay Area yet. Their one loss was at Cal, so they're finally going to go on the road this week. We'll see how they do outside of the friendly confines.
Yeah, no, it's both impressive coaching job and impressive scheduling. Both those things are very, very impressive, and they're going to hit a rocky spot. They've built up a ton of confidence though in this stretch, and they to lose at Cal and they beat Stanford at home, and it is impressive. They do a nice job. They all shoot the ball. You got to get your hats off to them. They're very skilled, very offensive. They're all shooting at such a high rate that it takes the pressure off of each one. They're in that basketball sweet spot of where, and we're close to it at times where we don't have to have one guy scoring. We got different weapons. They're in that basketball sweet spot of where they can beat you with one guy not scoring, and you can't say, hey, take this guy out. And they play good hard-nosed defense. So they play at a slower pace, very controlled. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the updated stats, but I think they were top 3 in both field goal and three-point percentage. They're one of the most efficient teams, to your point. They don't take bad shots. They move the ball well. So they're going to be a force to reckon with like they have been the last few years. We'll talk a little bit more about Gonzaga as we preview them a little bit later. But after those two teams drop, Portland 2-2, San Francisco 2-2, and maybe a surprise Pacific 2-2, but they've gotten a couple guys back that have been sitting out, and they might be getting more back coming up. So that's a team that people will say, well, they didn't win a Division I game in non-conference. They've had a lot of turmoil there. They've taken themselves out of the WCC tournament and postseason play, but that's not a gimme on the schedule either with Pacific.
No, they're, around the, it's one of those teams that you sort of start to look at, you just reading the headlines, okay, this team's done. But if you know a little bit about the people at Pacific and the players that they have, and like you so correctly pointed out, the players they're getting back, that's hard for one that, it's not a game you can say, okay, that's not going to be, we take care of business there. They're very challenging. Coach Mike Burns is the interim coach.
Experienced coach.
Last time he was a head coach, Eastern Washington knocked us off at Portland with, what was the name? Stuckey.
Rodney Stuckey in the NBA still.
Yeah, that Rodney Stuckey. He was coaching Rodney Stuckey at Eastern Washington, and then he was just most recently at San Diego with Coach Greer, and very veteran, good coach. And it's interesting if you know Coach Burns, and for those that really want to watch closely, his personality. He laughs a lot. He has a good time. He's really intense. So in terms of like just getting the kids to rally around him, and really chaotic situation with no WCC tournament. He's kind of got the personality to do it. It's kind of like he's one of those
us against the world, wounded dog mentality, and they've come out and they've played tough, and they probably gave one away at San Francisco. They had a 19-point lead at San Francisco, and as we saw, San Francisco is a high-octane team that can score, but they're very close to being 3-1. BYU, a team that had some pretty high expectations coming in, had some losses in non-conference that maybe scratched your head a little bit. They're 1-1. Pepperdine 1-2. Santa Clara 1-3, but they lose at a 3-point buzzer beater in overtime where they blew it at Pacific. Close game to Gonzaga could be right there, and then San Diego and LMU both winless at the bottom, but dangerous teams. So there's a long ways to go in this conference race.
Yeah, there definitely is. Pepperdine's interesting. I look at some of their defensive numbers because I really respect the job they do defensively, and their defensive numbers aren't very good in the league. And you look at, they played at Gonzaga, they played at Portland, and when we played well, we were pretty tough.
Yeah,
because I think we're second or third offensively now in the league, and so we're a tough team to guard right now. And then they played at LMU at home, and LMU is better than the team that we handled pretty comfortably at our place.
And they've been better all year, quite
right.
Frankly. We just kind of ran them out of the gym, and before they could catch their breath.
Yeah, no, we that was a good weekend for us coming off the games at the Moda Center, and it was a good performance by our guys, and so the conference race, Santa Clara, I think they're probably on the upswing for sure a little bit, and Pepperdine I think will be fine. LMU, I just don't see anyone that's like you're saying is trending downward, really. You like to
San Diego, new staff, getting some development there, and Pacific's bounced back. One of the things that's interesting that a lot of people were saying as we were flying into Portland and seeing the Gonzaga not following, but then seeing the tweet deck about everything going on, a lot of people saying, well, if Gonzaga loses a couple of these games, they might have their at-large status at risk. The WCC's been a 2 or 3 bid league every year. This year it might be a 1 or 2 bid league. That almost puts more pressure on these teams to kind of get it done, doesn't it?
It definitely does. I think the dynamics of thing is Gonzaga, it gets everyone's best shot a lot of times, and they do a good job of weathering those storms. I think the league is pretty good. I think it's a little more parity. When you start going, maybe second or third to 9, is just right in there. It's just, and that's why I really still feel like it. I feel like there's a couple people that are saying the same thing I'm saying in terms of we're young, we're still coming together, we're still this or we're still that. I feel like from a coach's perspective, it's like it's a race against time. Because I really like this team, I really like the direction we're heading, but it's January. We've got to start. We've got to be putting it together, and that's where, frankly, not getting the road split last weekend when we could have won 2 maybe, but not getting the road split even was disappointing. So how we respond to that, it's a tough week to respond, as we were talking about, going to look ahead to Gonzaga, but it's a tough week to respond. But so it's really about us getting better at the things we talked about that you mentioned, so that we can be a better basketball team for the following week.
We'll talk about Gonzaga next. This will be our final break. Give us a call if you got any last-second questions for Coach Rev, 503-542-0910. You're listening to the Portland Pilots Coaches Show on 910 ESPN Portland.
You're listening to Portland Pilots Basketball with Coach Eric Reveneau on 910 ESPN Portland. Here's your host, Jason Bro.
Upcoming game against Gonzaga, but right now, Coach, we had the holiday break. We had some time off. It's transition going from fall semester to spring semester. We talked in the pregame show about Kramer Knudsen getting married, the director of ops, and you've had a little bit of a break. How have you guys tried to manage that as a team and kind of team unity?
The games were the biggest sort of bonding experience coming out of finals and going through that, and the guys did a good job in finals, really pleased academically with where the team's at. And then we had the games at the Moda Center. Then we come out of Christmas, good solid 4-day break, met down in San Francisco. Again, Kramer getting married on Christmas Eve, and then he's bouncing back, and he's down, and we're staying down at Fisherman's Wharf because the campus is closed. We could bring him back here. I actually felt bad, by the way. I didn't feel bad. I won't kid you, but it'd be nice when we were torching the nets at USF because they let us shoot there for 3 days. It was very, very hospitable of them. I think they were regretting that decision for at least a little bit. But and so just trying to spend time with the guys. Frankly, the coaching staff spending extra time with the guys over the break, and we were very fortunate on New Year's Eve. It was disappointing after the loss, and it was tough, and then we had bus trouble, and that was interesting, but got delayed a little bit. But long story short, we had a very lovely, fantastic dinner at a friend of mine's house, a strong supporter of the program, Mike Tuxedo, on the way down from San Francisco to Santa Clara. He and his wife Kathleen, a Notre Dame graduate, had us to the house, and the guys with the ping pong table and the pool table downstairs, and some good food, Italian food, and just sat there. We were able to eat and hang out and just sort of decompress, watch the end of the game that was on. And we didn't stay till New Year's. I think the Tuxedos might have been relieved, but we didn't stay till New Year's, head back down to Santa Clara. But it was very nice to have that opportunity and to get them in a home setting and just to sit down and spend some time. And it was great. So things like that, when we get the opportunity, we do that. This week we've got a few things. Unfortunately, Bill Johnson's memorial tomorrow at 4 on campus. We'll be going to that and paying our respects. But there's stuff going on that we try to take advantage of.
Well, one of the things you glossed over that you didn't really mention was the highlight of that trip to the Tuxedos was
foosball.
No, it was the video of Coach Reveneau back in high school.
God, so that's I forgot about that. I seriously forgot about that.
That was nice form by the host.
Oh yeah, it worried me how quick he pulled that up. Like, is he
had it cued?
Is it? Do you just want to say get a life, or do you want to what do you want to tell the guy? But there was a lot of hair in that picture, and the guy was getting interviewed after our state championship game. By the way, just if you want to be specific, 1983 California Division II state championship. Not that I remember, but the funny thing was the guys chuckled at my answers because I sounded like a high school senior, kind of goofy and maybe not much better. I don't sound much better now, but they got a good chuckle out of it.
Shift forward and let's look at Gonzaga. What's the scouting report on Gonzaga? They've been the cream of the crop for the WCC for so long. What do you expect on Saturday?
A tough environment. It's just a tough place to play. We've got to go up there with the mindset of this. We're going to do these things and we're going to win. And you got to go up there and you got to be willing to sort of throw the proverbial punches and just and take your best shot and just enjoy the experience. And that's from them. I expect they're always energized there to play in front of their students. Might not be there, but you won't be able to tell really. I thought you'll walk in, you go, I thought the students weren't back yet. And it'll be a good crowd, and so you've got to expect that. Wiltshire's just a skilled four-man that's a really tough matchup. Shoot the ball. Sabonis just so tough inside, shooting high percentage stuff. Which both those are a good test for us because they shoot high percentage stuff that we're working on trying to limit. Their guards, Perkins is playing well now, and Coach Pfaff just put look like a binder, but it's not quite that thick, but of Gonzaga prep stuff with some really good suggestions on things we can do and different ways to cover on-ball screens, and we'll start looking at that. We're going to play faster. We're going to try to run. They don't play as many guys. They got a short bench. Can we get after it a little bit and play? What you want to do is try to simplify things for guys. We just got to stick to what we do and do it very well and enjoy it.
No Shemek Karnowski. They announced season-ending back, I believe, surgery for Shemek, big senior. In some ways, that's allowed Sabonis really to blossom, and he's been scary good, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, he really has. He's been, scary good. Coach Pfaff was in the office today, and we was just talking about how he was guarding Dirksen from USF and getting out on the perimeter and just getting after a guard, and he's scary. And I wish Karnowski best. They're not better without him by any stretch, but there is some sort of they're gonna hit a lull where they could have used him, a matchup where they could have used him, but he's really good, Sabonis.
WCC has so many good guards, and I think if Gonzaga is going to make that jump to be a team that's really good, you mentioned their guard play, Perkins playing better. I think Eric McClellan's played better coming in. They struggled on the road, but they took care of LMU and Pepperdine pretty easily at home. You mentioned a tough environment to get there, but maybe not as dominant as a team as they've been in the past. No,
not as dominant, and I like to play them at the Kennel versus the Child Center over break. And so we've had that a few years, and it's our turn to go up there and start up there and see what we can do.
Well, great opportunity for the Pilots, as you mentioned, going on the road to the McCarthy Athletic Center. That is going to be a 5 o'clock tip, televised live on Root Sports Northwest, radio coverage starting at 4:30 right here on 910 ESPN Portland. Coach Reveno, thank you for joining us. Jesse Osman on the board doing all the good work for us. Thanks for all of our listeners. Be sure to tune in this Saturday, again, 4:30 on air right here, Portland Pilots basketball on 910 ESPN Portland.
This has been Portland Pilots basketball with Coach Eric Reveno. Tonight's show was brought to you by Employee-Owned by Mart, by your local Les Schwab Tire Center, the Oregon College Savings Plan, by Buffalo Wild Wings, U.S. Bank, by Safeway, and by Play Smart Health Screenings from Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. Join us for University of Portland basketball all season long on the home of the Pilots, 910 ESPN Portland. Portland. Portland, 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 Portland.